Welcome to First Bite, our Detroit Lions midweek podcast where we bring in a special guest to talk all things Detroit Lions. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I am the editor-in-chief at Pride of Detroit. You can find me at Detroit Online on Twitter. With me, as always, for First Bite, Ryan Matthews is here at Ryan_POD on Twitter. Ryan, how are we doing today?
We're doing well. We got a good episode for our guest today.
Yes, we're right in the middle of schedule mania, but we wanted to take a step away from that for a second to continue our draft series where we bring in an expert from the college ranks to talk about the Detroit Lions draft pick. We talked about Penei Sewell last week. Let's talk about their second round pick, Levi Onwuzurike, and to do that, we've brought aboard Lars Hanson from the Dog Report, the Rivals affiliate for Washington Huskies. Lars, how you doing today?
Can't complain, guys. It's nice to be talking football again. It's nice. It's always refreshing. It's nothing you can take for granted, so it's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, and it's been a while for both of us, I think, to talk actual football. But and it's been a while since Levi has taken the field as well, which we'll get to in a little bit. But before we even get into anything Levi's done on the field, we have to talk about the press conference that he had, the introductory press conference he had in Detroit, where he's, he had some colorful language. We'll try to keep it clean here, but if something lets loose, go ahead, Lars. But I'm just kind of curious, what were your initial thoughts when you saw that press conference, and was that something that you got accustomed to during his times at Washington?
Well, I'll say this. I didn't hear any of that in his 4 years at Washington. To be fair to him, I think when you're a college athlete, it's kind of hard to say those things. And usually the SID is kind of like nudging you on the corner, like, hey, let's try and not keep PT, as best as possible. But I think, it's being his authentic self. He is a true kind of, I don't take any mess for granted. I don't mess with anybody. I just get my work done. I toss linemen to the side, left and right. It doesn't matter. I'm just ready to go, what people up. And, it's really truly Levi, because he's not doing it to be arrogant. He's not doing it to be cocky. It's just who he is. But he just hasn't been able to really say those exact words when he was at the University of Washington.
Yeah, and Lars, you mentioned during his 4 years there, he was a redshirt senior and opted out of the 2020 season. So, what were your impressions of him as a player? What really stood out to you in terms of maybe his biggest strengths as a player for the Huskies?
Well, I think one thing that allowed him to get on the field early on and as a benefit to his career was his versatility. He's a guy who he was kind of well known as a defensive tackle, but what does that really mean when you're playing in a 3 or 4 or 4-3? And one of the things that allowed him to get on the field was playing special teams and making a few punt blocks, a few field goal blocks, both in practice and even in games. And so I think his versatility is kind of one thing that really always caught my eye. He came into college as a defensive end. He was ranked as a defensive end by both Rivals and the competition. So when he became a defensive tackle at Washington, it was mainly because he kind of just grew into the position and for the way Washington's scheme runs, which is similar to what the Lions are going to run under Dan Campbell, which we can talk about later. It allowed him to excel and be his natural self without having to be undersized in a different position, per se.
I want to talk a little bit more about how Washington used him, because I do think that's kind of an interesting topic. A lot of people project him to kind of be more of a 3-tech or even a 4-eye here in Detroit. But he played a lot of nose, and, given his size, given all that sort of stuff, maybe it's not expected for him to do that at the pro level, but I'm curious as how he performed at that level, and you mentioned his versatility. Did Washington really use him kind of all over the place?
Yeah, so ironically, how his snaps broke down his last 2 seasons in 2018 and 2019, he took almost as many snaps at nose tackle and kind of how you split those out, and defensive tackle. So he really can actually do both. Mm-hmm. And the way Washington's defense was run under Pete Kwiatkowski, who's now at Texas, it was run with a 3-man front where you had Vita Vea. Everybody recognizes that name. He's a lot bigger, obviously, than Levi, but the same premise still applies, where if you can be in the right position to maximize your strengths and kind of toss guys aside, that's how Levi found his success, was kind of sliding through the middle. And that's why he actually even played defensive end. In some regards, where he's coming as that guy not off the edge per se, as like a rush linebacker, but playing an old natural 4-3 defensive end position. That's something I wouldn't expect him to do, but I think for the Lions, I could easily see him not being a pseudo nose tackle, and that's their third round pick, who I think actually is a better fit for that. And you could see Levi being next to him at defensive tackle, or however you want to slant that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going back to like the maturation process for him, he is kind of like slender for a guy who played nose tackle at Washington, and you talked about that role a little bit. Do you see him as a guy who has the potential to maybe bulk up a little bit on his frame? Because he started as a defensive end, as you mentioned, when he got on campus at Washington, and this is a guy who is 6'3", about 295 right now. So do you see him as somebody who really grew, I guess, during his time at Washington and maybe has the ability to bulk up a little bit more? Or do you think that maybe that twitchiness would not be as best utilized if he did get a little bit bigger? And do you think that he's better suited to kind of stay where he's at right now?
That's actually a good distinction you made there at the end, where I almost think it actually suits him better to keep his current weight, but I don't think he's limited to. He could be, 305, maybe 310 at max, but I don't think that's advantageous for him. As crazy as that sounds, you would think, wow, bigger guy, you would want him to be bigger and stronger and whatever. But his quickness and his agility is really what you value most in him, and so I think if you were to put on weight, that almost might be bad for him. Again, muscle maybe is not really the worst thing, but I would more likely see him as a guy who just stays right at 295 and doesn't crack 300.
Let's talk a little bit more about that twitchiness, that fast first step, that explosiveness that he clearly has on tape. The Lions fans are dying for some pass rush up the middle. But you look at his, if you're kind of just looking through the box score, it might not pop out. He only had 7 career sacks at Washington over 3 years. Is there a specific reason for that? Is it because he was playing out of position? Is it because it's just tough for an interior defensive lineman to get those sacks? Is he bringing the pressures and just someone else is cleaning up? How would you view why those sack numbers are kind of low?
I think that, the key distinction would be between sacks and pressures. He can still disrupt the pass or disrupt and also get and make several tackles for loss. And one key that PFF had, the Pro Football Focus, was he had the least amount of missed tackles of any 2021 draft prospect. So I don't care if he doesn't have 15 or 20 sacks, he doesn't miss. So regardless of when he gets guys in his hands, he doesn't, it's over. So I think that is kind of something more to value to say, hey, how does he affect the game? And, to your point where he doesn't look impressive in the stat box, but when the Lions are winning and he has maybe, 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, but he's made an impact in so much more ways, that's what matters more is the win at the end.
Yeah. So, Levi's time, how much of it was, you mentioned Vita Vea as a name, and he seemed to be obviously a big name prospect, whereas Levi kind of, because this defensive tackle class was viewed as being a little bit weaker, and by a little bit weaker, I mean a bit weaker. Do you think that it was just a product of that lack of production? And do you think that he's somebody who can truly, make a big impact at the NFL level versus, that limited production he had at college?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a fair point to make. And I think also one thing that maybe didn't help him was obviously just not playing and not having the 2020 season. And even if he did, he's only going to have 4 games. So you're not going to feel even like, okay, wow, what did we really get out of this? Whereas, a guy like the defensive tackle from Alabama, who was the first tackle taken, everybody got to see him. There was a little bit more there. But similar to Vita, neither one came in with a lot of pop or a lot of focus, so they were able to develop at Washington, and I think more or less that's what Levi should be expected to do in Detroit, where the Lions will take his athletic and skill set and put him in the right positions to be even better than he was at Washington and make maybe even more of an impact on the field and in the stat box than he did at UW.
I want to talk about when he made a specific impression upon you. Like, is there a specific play, a specific moment, a press conference where you're like, this guy is special, he could be, potentially even a first round pick, which he almost was?
Right. So I remember it was mid 2018, between after, I think it's before or after the Cal game. It was when he had started to fully take over that position from Vita and be like, hey, this is kind of the guys I need to learn from and soak up as much as I can. And it really seemed like something had kind of flipped for him in 2018. So when he came in 2019, it wasn't as much of a surprise to see him really own that position for Washington. but it started back in 2018. And so I think for me, it was him talking about his diet and kind of how he liked to have seafood and like to have a bunch of things that you wouldn't expect a dude to have, but it helped him be leaner, it helped him be healthier, it helped him be better on the field. And as a result, like, and that's kind of more to your point when you guys were saying, like, well, he doesn't look the biggest and he is kind of quote unquote undersized. And it's like, but it's kind of just his body is right. And I think you take a guy whose body is right over a guy who's got the ideal frame. And then, I mean, how many of those guys flame out compared to a guy who is able to maximize what his skill set is?
Did you believe he would be? Did you have a guess of when and where he'd go?
I saw him as a top 50 guy, so it wasn't. I thought he could go a little later or a little earlier, maybe like late first round, where Joe Tryon inevitably won. I think it was kind of like it was between him and Levi for who was going to be the first player taken.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was going to be either one of those guys in the late first. And Detroit, honestly, I mean, when you're picking in the top 10 in the second round, if you're doing it right, you can get a first round pick in that area. And I think Detroit did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess let's switch up and focus on the things that Levi can improve, things that maybe he struggled with at Washington, whether or not it was because he was pigeonholed into doing something maybe he wasn't fit for or whatever it may be. What do you see Levi in terms of that, that process of making it from college to the NFL ranks? Like, what do you think is going to be his biggest hurdle that he's going to have to overcome in order to be successful at the next level?
I think more, I don't want to say the size, just because, again, obviously everyone's big at the NFL level, but I think just understanding what his body is at this new level. And I know that might sound cliche, it might be obvious, but I think for him, because if he's in the wrong position, that's kind of where his weaknesses will get exposed, which is, again, he's not the biggest guy. He's twitchy, but you can, if you're a big offensive tackle or if you double team him with your tackle and your guard, you can easily erase him, and it's not as, you just basically just made him irrelevant. And so I think making sure that he doesn't try to do too much too early, because you want him to kind of build into it, and which is what he did at Washington. He built into becoming a starting defensive tackle within about 24 to 36 months. It took him in that gradual period. So I think if Detroit is expecting him to jump in right away, I think you would want to get him playing time, but not have him, the expectations be to have him start or anything like that. Because I think those are the two things that could really ruin him. And I think where another area that he can improve is he's very good kind of at the point of attack, but I think that part of the reason he didn't have as much production was because of, he's got that agility, but I think he maybe can use a little more power. And I'm not sure if that's because he's undersized or if that's just for whatever the case may be. But I think that's one area where he can certainly get better, is having just a little more power to either get to the quarterback more or be able to disrupt the run more.
Last question here before we head to our first break here. I want to talk a little bit about his decision to opt out. We talked a little bit about it last week with Penei Sewell, and we know the Pac-12 kind of left players hanging by canceling the season, then coming back and doing that. I'm just curious if you could provide insight into Levi's decision. I think we learned last week that Sewell actually tried to get back in but couldn't. Did Levi go through something similar like that?
So yeah, both Tryon and Levi wanted to come back but then I think both kind of ultimately knew that there was no point when there was only going to be 4, and they didn't know there was going to be 4 games when they were trying to come back. But I think it was regardless. I almost thought Levi could have gone after 2019, but he certainly would have kind of maybe played himself into a guaranteed day 2 guy, or maybe even a day 1 guy. But I think it was kind of just time. It wasn't viewed as like wow, he's quitting on the team or anything like that. I think it was kind of like, well, he was going to go anyway, and the Pac-12 can't get its act together. So, and he's already graduated, so it's not like that's a degree. He's already got the degree. He was coming back to do the eligibility side, not because of any other academic reason. So I think that once he, knowing that he had his degree, I think he's like, okay, I'll just focus on my body. And actually, it's a benefit to what people, when they were saying that they were going to opt out, it's like, oh, maybe teams are going to think it's quitting on him. It's like, no, you're taking care of your body by doing that.
Yeah.
What's the point of blowing out your knee against Arizona in week 2 in a 4-game season? There's no point in that. So I think it actually was a smart decision, and it paid off.
All right. Appreciate the insight there, Lars. When we come back, we're going to talk more about Levi Onwuzurike. We're going to talk specifically about what his fit is in with the Detroit Lions, what expectations we can see for 2021 and beyond. So stick with us here on First Bite, Pride of Detroit midweek PODcast. All right, we're going to take a second here to thank some people in our crowd before we get back into it. LJ with the Tier 3 subscription for 18 months. My goodness, LJ, you're a freaking legend. Thank you for the support. State Nate with the 5 months subscribing at the Tier 1 level. Appreciate you. You're getting up there in age as well now. And Frank Zapper gifted a sub over to Stekeltic. Thank you for paying it forward. Yeah. Frank Zapper got a gifted sub from our own No Decaf, and now he paid it forward. Appreciate that. And see some people in the chat. See our good friend Bearded Blevin in the chat says Lars might not know who our starters are. He has to start. Maybe not. They might start Nick Williams. I wouldn't be completely surprised if they started Nick Williams.
Neither would I.
Yeah. We'll see. Thanks for thanking people. No problem, Baltimore Beatdown. Shouldn't you be working on the schedule? Even though I may have slipped you a little bit of a tip. Oh, yours already got leaked? All right, well, never mind then. You didn't even need my little tip. All right. Then we'll get back into this then because it doesn't seem like we have... If you have any questions really quick, chat, for Lars, feel free to ask them. You were able to bully someone who had it wrong? Fair enough. Okay. Then let's get back into it. Sorry. All right. Give me a second for a little editing point, and we'll get right back into it. And we are back in First Bite, our midweek podcast. We're talking about Levi Onwuzurike with Lars Hanson from Rivals.com, the Washington affiliate known as the Dog Report. Let's talk. I want to get right into a comment you made in the first half, which is you kind of project Washington's defensive front, defensive scheme to be much like that of what they're going to be doing here in Detroit. So that must mean you kind of see a pretty easy transition for Levi at the next level. What do you think his role will be in Detroit right away?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of when I was doing some research before this, knowing who they got in the third round, the McNeil guy out of NC State, I almost just kind of see it as, well, you can easily just plug Levi on the left, D tackle or D end, whatever you guys want to call it, McNeil in the middle, and then I don't care who you put on the right. And it just seems like an easy solution. And I guess, I don't know if we made the point that I said about he shouldn't start. And it's not that he doesn't have the ability to start. I think more or less just like from an expectation point, he's certainly maybe 2-3 weeks into it is your starter. But I'm more or less just saying like the pressure on him, more or less like he'll develop into it regardless whether I think he won't or will. I think he's just that guy to develop into it. And certainly looking at who they have on the roster, they're all pretty similar. Deshaun Cornell is just 6'3", 290, basically the exact same size. So the way that I'm looking at it is Levi is basically in a competition with some of these guys, and he's easily going to play himself into whichever position they put him at.
Yeah, I think there's no question that they drafted him to eventually be a starter, but I think you're right. Like I think they might want to take their time with that because they're probably going to have at least some sort of limited offseason yet again with COVID stuff, and putting a rookie in there right away is dangerous.
Who hasn't played since this 2019?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Senior Bowl, unless you count the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Which so
half credit.
Exactly. Quarterback.
Expanding on his fit with Detroit specifically, I don't know how familiar you are with Dan Campbell and his affinity for kneecaps and the such, but I think what was really clear about Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes' approach to the draft is they really wanted to get football players, and I know that might kind of sound like a cliche, but do you see Levi fitting into Detroit in that role as a guy who just loves to play football? Did you get that sense from him? Yeah.
Without question, Levi couldn't be a more perfect fit for Detroit. Just a tough, he's a guy who's got a personality, but it's not really big. He's trying to, I think, almost let his personality show, and that's what he did in the press conference. I think that's how he shows he's not going to be the guy blinging it up. He's not going to be the guy being a distraction. He's going to be the guy saying, "Look, can you please keep it together? We're trying to, just come on, man." Like, the very stern, the old young guy in the room. The guy that's
the old young guy. I like that.
Yeah. And he comes from Allen, Texas, a very working class, a very strong area, and he brought that to Washington. He was one of the first 3 guys from Texas that Washington brought out. And they were in the same class, and he was really, Aaron Fuller was the only other one who made an impact, and he wasn't drafted. So Levi's going to be the guy out of Texas who was a 3-star, which Washington, I'm sure, will take pride in that, that they developed into a second-round pick, and really all the credit should go to Levi just for being the hard worker that he is.
And that really, to that point, he was a decorated high school, college, or a decorated high school football player from, playing with Kyler Murray, winning state championships and the such. So, he's a guy who probably could have come to Washington, maybe rested on his laurels a little bit. But I think it really speaks volumes to him as a football player and as a person for the fact that he, went from a 3-star recruit into a guy who had first-round buzz. So, yeah, I think that's a great feather in his cap for sure.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I'm just so glad that he was allowed, there he is allowed now to show that personality side, because I've always been kind of curious what it was, and especially as a recruit, they never want to say anything. So when I was talking to him, he was always a great kid to talk to, but I'm like, all right. And then to finally see that press conference, I'm like, of course, all right. How about being in the pros, man? How about being a real adult now?
And now you know how we felt in the past 3 years under Matt Patricia, where no one ever said anything. So
for real, honestly, kind of almost in a way like Chris Peterson, but
Did you get a sense?
Although when he talks, you do want to listen every now and then.
Sure. Did you get a sense of his leadership style? I know I don't think he was ever named captain at Washington. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but is he kind of more the quiet leader type? Or obviously that might change since he's now a little bit more outspoken. But is that kind of how you viewed his personality there?
Yeah, kind of. Well, I think also something to consider at Washington, not that Levi wasn't the dog, or he's not that he's an alpha, but he was really among dudes that were look, you're kind of almost like the Seahawks and Legion of Boom. It's we're going to be the guys up here. I don't care if you think you're hanging with us, you're going to be right, just a step below us. You're not going to be the captain. You're going to be the captain's first mate or whatever, but still just as influential, still just as people respect you. He commands respect by giving respect and showing it through his actions in his game. He's not a guy who's going to expect to walk in and, be the guy, but certainly I think from a talent perspective, you can't deny he's going to be one of the guys regardless.
Fair enough. I just got one. I got one more, and then you want to take one after that, Ryan?
Sure. Yeah.
My last one, and I like to ask this one, I'm going to ask everyone that we talk to this question is, if there's one play that Levi Onwuzurike had during his time at Washington that perfectly explains who he is as a player, or some a play maybe that you'll never forget that he made, what was it?
I'm trying to remember who the opponent was, but what comes to mind is he had a punt block. Was there a punt or a field? I'm pretty sure it was a punt block.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of one of those, I'm not just a guy who can kind of rush. It takes another level to be an athlete, to be an interior lineman, rushing and making that block. It's different to be a gunner or some small scrawny dude coming in, diving, doing the hands like this, getting the fingertip on the ball. When you're literally taking out the entire line and blocking a punt like that, that to me says something. And I can't remember. It was 2018, I believe, and it wasn't. I don't think it was Arizona, but it was one of those. It was a conference opponent game. And it was just kind of one of those moments where, you can tell this is going to be a guy, but yet no one can really pronounce his name. And you guys, by the way, great credit to you guys nailing it.
Thank you.
But because that's always one of the funnier ones. It's how do you when he arrived at UW, people were like, how do you say? I'm like, Onwuzurike. It really is not as hard as it looks. It looks terrifying. You just want to call him Levi, but it's no, I think it's actually kind of fitting for him because he commands the respect. You got to learn my last name, man, because I'm going to be a name you're going to be saying. So you better learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Lars, I'm sure Jeremy really appreciates that. He's a big fan of blocked punts. Being a University of Michigan fan,
Okay.
he loves a good blocked punt.
That wasn't even blocked. He just dropped it. All right.
Same difference.
Real quick before your question, Levi actually took an official visit to UM.
That's right. Yeah.
The week before, he took his visit to Washington.
Yeah.
And then chose Washington in the end. So not to point out on the window.
Whatever. Past of the past.
Well, actually, I think that leads me into a good question. Like, did you ever get a sense of why Levi chose Washington versus any of the other offers he had from other schools?
Well, a lot of what I don't know if he said this per se at the time, but again, a lot of people say Chris Peterson, just kind of that the guy you can kind of trust and mold me to be the right guy. And I think honestly, part of it was he knew that he could make a name for himself at Washington. And whether you want to say he came out as a household name, it's like people still knew his name when he came out. So I think he accomplished his goal, and he did it without having to have all of the attention. Because Washington being in the Pac-12, being a little bit out, they don't have the Michigan attention that Jim Harbaugh gets, or the Ohio, the other schools that get a lot more light.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, but it's allowed him to get his work done and do what he needed to do. And so I think that's ultimately why he chose Washington. It was kind of like a home away from home without too much of a light and not being totally in darkness.
All right, that's interesting. So last question, last question this time. Give Lions fans the one thing that they should be super excited about with Levi Onwuzurike.
He's going to be very durable. He's a very durable guy. So he's a guy that's not a question mark in that sense. So he's not like, wow, great, we wasted a pick on this guy. He's not going to be that guy. I already know. I can tell you again. You can say knock on wood, but he's not a guy who's going to be missing games or anything like that. And I think it's a guy you can just. It's such a great value. Like, it just, to me, and I don't want to sound like I'm talking him up too much, but he's just a guy where I can see 10-year career, 12-year career, just a staple. And that might be even underselling it, but just, a staple player who you can always count on. He might not be the guy that is Aaron Donald, but he's certainly not going to be a guy you don't know about. Like, everybody's like, oh, yeah, he is. He actually is really good. He's like probably top 3, top 5. It's like, he's not, maybe not 1, maybe he's not 2, but he's right there. And I think, as long as he's allowed to be himself and kind of grow into it, because again, I think you'll probably see him starting by mid-year, given that, like, as you guys pointed out, but looking at the roster. But to his credit, I don't want to say, oh, hey, expect him to come in and start, and then he doesn't start for the first 3 games. It's like, well, don't shoot the messenger here. But but he's, it's kind of just, it's a very solid, safe, good dude. It's a guy you don't have to worry about, and a guy you can depend on, and a guy is going to do something for you to hopefully win games.
That's Lars Hanson. You can follow him at Lars Hanson on Twitter or read his stuff over at The Dog Report. Again, that's the Washington Huskies affiliate for Rivals.com. Lars, appreciate the time, appreciate the insight. We might catch up with you again after Lars becomes a Pro Bowler in year 1. That's what you promised, right?
Yeah, you know what? He's definitely going to get some recognition on some team. Maybe second team or first team all rookie, or
sure.
top 5 defensive rookie of the year.
I'll take it.
We'll see. He might be fighting for that defensive rookie of the year spot, though.
I mean, it's been a while. I think we're talking Ndamukong Suh territory at that point.
See, yeah, that was the one name I was trying to not say. I was like, I don't want to put that on him just because that's probably hard to live up to. But 1A, 1B. Don't be surprised.
We don't hate Kool-Aid over here, Lars. We don't mind a good cup of Kool-Aid.
We also may subsist on it, especially this time of year. So,
yeah.
Again, appreciate the time. Appreciate you all for listening. We'll be back for the main POD cast probably Monday night to talk about the NFL schedule, all that sort of fun stuff. But until next time, it's chaos. Be kind, everybody.
Call recording off.
Okay. The recording is off, but just so you know, Lars, we are still live for our live audience, but you are also free to go. Appreciate all the insight.
I didn't want to just drop out there, but I didn't want
to. Awesome.
Awesome. You got me on.
Thanks, Lars. We really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, anytime you guys want to have me on, honestly, I was so glad that I saw your tweet, because usually I don't check my Twitter I usually check it around noon. So when I saw that, I need to get back to this right now, because I know I'm going to have like 5 hours where I don't respond. So I just wanted to. Appreciate you guys reaching out and thanking to me.
Of course.
And I enjoyed it, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
Have a good one.
You too.
Cool. Take care.
See you.
All right, I figure we can probably stick around for a second here and talk about some schedule stuff if you guys want to. Full disclosure, and I don't even know if I should be disclosing it. I have the full schedule. I'm not going to tell you guys anything that hasn't been leaked yet, but I do need to check and make sure I don't say something that hasn't been leaked yet. So, here's what guys know.
You're just stepping into a bee's nest right now.
I know I am.
You realize that, right? What good comes of this?
I will pull up our article of what has been leaked so far here and show it to you guys in case you aren't up to date. Sorry. I probably shouldn't even told you that I know the whole schedule, but yeah. This is what we've got so far. You guys have so far. What do you think about not opening with the Niners?
Opening with the Niners?
Yeah. At home with the Niners.
I mean, I think that you couldn't find a better team to be a foil to Detroit's biggest strength.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Right out of the gate, that offensive line is going to be tested in a way that few other teams can test them. I mean, you're talking about Bosa, you're talking about Armstead. I mean, they're gonna get after you, and it's gonna be. I don't want to say trial by fire because I mean 4 of these guys have been NFL players, but you know you're gonna have Sewell out there, and he's gonna get tested early and often. So 7 points seems about right.
Yeah, it's a 7. I've seen as high as 8 point spread. That seems a little high for me. Like we have to. I know everyone's
Does
high.
6.5 sound good? Does 6.5 sound better?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I'm a fan of the 49ers. You know, I'm a huge Kyle Shanahan fan. I think they have a good chance of rebounding this year, but they're also starting with a new defensive coordinator. We don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be right away. Mm-hmm. We don't know if it's Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo. I kind of get the feeling it might actually be Trey Lance, which, I mean, who doesn't want to see a rookie quarterback in week 1 again here in Detroit? That sounds fun.
That's cool.
Other schedule news that has been released is Monday Night Football, week 2 against the Packers, which I think was a pretty big surprise for people.
Something I heard on the radio today was that there was a sportsbook that had Rodgers retiring at minus 400.
What? Wow.
Yes.
Why did you tell? Now, see, like that's almost worse than me telling chat that I have the full schedule. Like now I'm excited. Now you've got my hopes up.
Well, hold on. You did see that they signed Blake Bortles, right?
I did see that. Yes, that literally just happened right before we went live there, which is great. But I do believe that's insurance, right? Like that's just 100% insurance.
Yeah. Do you really need insurance when you drafted a quarterback in the first round last year?
But you need a backup then
is
too.
Is Jordan Love that bad?
No, Blake Bortles isn't starting insurance. He's backup insurance. I think.
Yeah. So he would be backup insurance for Jordan Love?
Yes.
Okay.
So if Aaron Rodgers isn't, he's not taking. I don't think Blake Bortles is starting. I don't know, maybe, but maybe not.
Let's make a bet right now. At any point in the season, do you think Blake Bortles will start for the Green Bay Packers?
Week 2 against the Lions, and he wins.
Oh, that would be. I don't know. Can you describe that in one word? Losing to Blake Bortles in week 2.
Loins. Loins. All caps.
What else can we talk about?
With the schedule, I need to bring
Thanksgiving?
That back up. Thanksgiving is the Bears again. 3rd time in 4 years that we're playing the Bears on Thanksgiving.
I'm not upset about that. Like, there are a lot of people that are upset about getting the Bears again on Thanksgiving. Like, it's a rivalry game. Like, here's the thing. I think by the time you get to Thanksgiving, like, look at the Lions season last year. Like, by the time the Lions got to Thanksgiving, they were playing the Houston Texans. And it was just like, who gives them what? You know what I mean? So It's like, at least I can kind of get up for that game because it's the Bears.
Yeah.
So that's how I viewed it.
Yeah. I've seen, like, at least 5 tweets of someone be like, oh, great, I have to go sit and eat turkey with my family while I watch frickin' Justin Fields, the guy the Lions should have taken, just beat the crap out of the Lions. Yeah, that's all there is to say.
Hey, guess what? Don't watch it then.
The other thing that's probably notable here, and it goes along with the Packers thing as well, is that we're getting the Bears in Chicago in Week 4. So that means 2 divisional games on the road in the first 2 months of the season. That's nice, not having to play Green Bay in anything, getting to play them in September. And I'm not sure what the date is on that Bears game, but that's got to be early October, so probably not getting any frozen tundra there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That being said, at Broncos December 12th, that could be a weather game right there.
Yeah. That's one of the most interesting things about schedule day is, especially for a team that is an indoor team like the Lions, everybody loves to find the outdoor game, and especially with like Dan Campbell now.
Yeah.
I mean, because so many people made so much about, I mean, rightfully so, because Patricia was having, team practices outside and things like that,
Right.
in winter weather.
Yeah.
But like there's just so much made about like, let's see how Dan Campbell's team handles the cold weather. Like, okay, like, yeah, like
establish that running identity, baby.
They're football players. Like, they've been playing this sport for a long time.
I'm
sure they've played in all sorts of weather.
Everyone in chat is trying to get me to spoil when the Rams game is. I'll let you know it's during the 2021 season. There you go. You heard it here first.
We can't. Bye week hasn't been released yet, right?
Bye week has not been released yet either. Sorry. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have even brought up the schedule at all. The thing is, like, here, like,
I told you, you whacked the hornet's nest, and you're like.
Here's the thing that has to be so frustrating from chat. It's literally on this screen. Like, I can see the entire thing right now. I'm looking at it right now.
Why are you doing that to them? That's not kind. It's not fair. Do we have anything else that we can talk about when it comes to the schedule?
Not really. There is a leaked Vikings, like the Vikings schedule leaked yesterday, but I can't speak to the veracity of it. I mean, I could speak to the veracity of it if I wanted to, but I haven't seen it come from a legitimate source yet.
There are people claiming, I think, is a little bit of what is that called? Reverse psychology, by saying Jeremy doesn't have the schedule at all.
I guess you'll see when the Lions release it at 7:45 tonight. We'll see how long it takes for us to put up our post about it.
I like the other from Constrictor 14. He says, check the reflection in his glasses.
You want me to get up real close to it? Wait, you can't see my glasses now. Gonna have to bounce it off. I don't think that's how this works. I could just drag it right in front of the screen right now too. I'd probably get in really big trouble with the Lions if I did that, but I could. Who knows if they watch our Twitch, right? No, I'm not gonna do. I'm kidding.
Lies and the lying liars who tell them, aka Jeremy Reisman.
Wait, who was that book by? Lies and the Lying. Was that a Bill Maher book?
LJ's got a good question. What do you think of the international games that were announced? And I guess we can we can dovetail off that with, are you happy or sad that the Lions aren't playing across the pond, as they say?
I'm a little once it became clear that the Lions were one of 5 candidates that could go overseas, I started really thinking about potentially going. And so in that sense, I'm a little disappointed because I've never been to London. But I will admit that I don't love covering international games. It's a hassle. It'd probably be even more of a hassle if I went to London and did it, but it would also be like a crazy memorable trip. So I guess overall I'm a little disappointed. But if you guys hadn't heard, the new NFL rules with international games is they're going to have 4 every year starting next year. and every 8 years a team is going to be required to host one. So, and if you do your math correctly there, if all 32 teams are hosting one in 8 years, that also means you're probably going to be a road. So you're probably going to go twice in 8 years, or once every 4 years ish. So
Math.
I'll get my opportunity.
And what were the London games that were announced? It was Jets, Falcons, and Dolphins, Jags.
That sounds right. I'm not entirely sure.
And that's kind of cool. I mean, I wonder how much of that was. I don't know. Like I always wonder how much the schedule is influenced by other things. And you have the number 1 and the number 2 pick both playing overseas.
Mm-hmm. That could be fun.
And the number 4 pick. Kyle
Yeah.
Pitts gets to get international. It's an international pit stop.
We play Broncos week 14. I believe that's one of the leaked ones, right? Oops, I almost pulled up the wrong one. The one that I can't show you. What's that? That's nothing. You don't need to see that, but it's nothing. Yeah, Broncos week 14. Is that what you said? That's a leaked one. The Graham Glasgow game, as I like to call it.
Jeremy,
Yes.
take a look at NFL Week 1, and I want you to share with our lovely viewers the game that you are most looking forward to that isn't Lions 49ers.
Let me see. Is there any chance? Okay, cool. ESPN already has the full week 1 schedule up. Let's take a look. Okay. Let's see. It's going to be fun watching Matthew Stafford take on the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be an easy game to root for. Oh, absolutely. Do I need to zoom in? Sorry. There we go. That should be a little better. What else do we like here? Is there something that sticks out to you?
For some reason,
Cleveland,
I don't know, like
Kansas City is a low-key good game.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in Jets Panthers Week 1.
Okay. Interesting.
Because of the Sam Darnold in Carolina thing.
Sure.
Zach Wilson's first game.
Yeah.
I think that definitely has some intrigue to it. Cardinals and Titans should be a good game.
Mm-hmm.
And then Browns Chiefs is a heavyweight matchup right out of the gate.
For sure. No question.
Yeah. Monday night seems like kind of a stinker. I think that the Ravens are just going to beat the brakes off the Raiders. Like it's going to be Jets Lions-esque.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is this the end of an era in Raiders land? Is this their last chance?
Their last chance at what?
I mean, I know Gruden's got a million-year contract, but
oh yeah,
they haven't won squat with him in what, 3 years now?
Yeah, it's been a few years now.
And I mean, they're already getting clowned for this year's draft.
Yeah. I
don't know.
Do you think it would be like a wholesale cleaning house, like him and Mayock?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how tight at the hip they are, but it feels like, at least from the outside in, it's just like, I don't know. It feels like it's been kind of a clown show since the beginning. And to be fair, like, they haven't been horrible. But there's just always something. It feels like there's always something wacky going on in Vegas now, and I mean, maybe that's what makes them a perfect fit, is for Vegas.
Right. Yeah. It just might be the perfect spot for Gruden. Maybe he never will get let go. Maybe he'll get the Marvin Lewis treatment. Who knows? Were you disgusted or were you amazed at Baltimore's Pop-Tart?
I kind of love
opponents.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, earlier in the day, who was it? It was Chargers. The Chargers.
Oh, Chargers, right? Yeah, because I was thinking of their first post was about the Ravens, right?
Yeah, I think yeah. But yeah, they basically posted a Twitter thread of just like, our 2021 opponents by Pop-Tarts, and they I don't know if they made up some of those Pop-Tart flavors or if someone else made them up. Obviously, some of them, like one was corned beef, one is Axe body spray.
Body spray.
But yeah, that was pretty funny. I mean, that to me, like now that I know the schedule, and again, haha, I know it and you don't. The fun part becomes all the creative ways that people do schedule releases.
I think my favorite of the bunch was the Patriots because they were unfrosted strawberry. It was like an actual actual Pop-Tart flavor.
Right. What the schedule actually drops, I believe it's 7:45. At least that's when our schedule is going to drop. That's when we've been given permission to drop the schedule. So just under an hour from now. We won't be back on to talk about it tonight because we have some other stuff going on behind the scenes. But Ryan and Chris and maybe a third guest will talk about it Monday night here on the Twitch channel. I will be on vacation. They might talk a little bit about rookie minicamp, which leads to the other kind of interesting news thing that happened today, which was Penei Sewell tweeted that he has tested positive for COVID and will miss out on minicamp, which is it's a bummer. Hopefully he's okay. I don't really know what else to say. It's a 3-day, set of practices and meetings and things like that. So it's not like he's missing out on something huge, but it's a bummer. It would have been his first opportunity to kind of perform in front of his new coaching staff and go to face-to-face meetings and things like that. So it's a missed opportunity and might set him back a week, but not something that's going to hopefully affect his career long-term. Knock on wood in terms of his health. You never know how that's going to play out, but I don't know. That's all I got to say on that.
I mean, hopefully he's in good shape and he, is able to come out of the other side feeling well.
Yeah. His tweet didn't indicate that he was having any symptoms, but it also didn't indicate that he wasn't having any symptoms. So it's just kind of something we'll have to wait and hear about when we talk to him next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're probably out of topics at this point, so it's probably time to set up a raid here, unless you got anything else you want to talk about, Ryan.
Let's just list off the Lions' schedule, week 1 to 17. Let's go. Ready? Go.
But not 18?
No, not 18.
We leave 18 a mystery, even though that's already been leaked. No, not gonna do that. Okay. Not gonna risk my job. But let's see who should.
Guys, I tried to be the voice of the people. I'm sorry.
Don't be good cop to my bad cop.
No, I will always be good cop to your bad cop.
What if you do it in ASMR? I don't think that makes it any more or less troublesome.
Zazu, grab the mic. Leak the schedule. Bark twice if the Lions play in Milwaukee.
Oh, our good friend Zeus is streaming. He's doing some art stuff. Zeus is a huge Lions fan, huge supporter of Pride of Detroit. We're going to go raid him. He's doing some art stuff. I can't really tell what it is because I have a little tiny tile, but I can assure you it's art. So go hang out with him for a little bit if you want to try to see if he knows anything about the schedule. I don't think he does, but you can try to shake him down.
I sent it to him. So.
Oh, okay. There you go. Ryan sent the schedule to Zeus and broke protocol. So we're gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go fire Ryan, and we'll see you. I guess Monday night. It'll be a little bit of a hiatus on the Twitch channel, but appreciate you guys enjoying the content. If you missed anything from our conversation about Levi Onwuzurike, it'll be up on YouTube later tonight. It'll be up on the podcast feed tomorrow. And that's all I got, y'all. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye forever.
Bye forever until next time. Oh.